The Christmas party season's been a bit curtailed this year, but often office Christmas parties would have karaoke. Anybody want to admit that they sing karaoke? I wonder if you've been singing a karaoke song and suddenly realised that the words you've been singing before were wrong. There's an English comedian called Peter Kay, and he did a little kind of routine about this, and I want to show you just a little bit of it. Here we go.
When you're singing on a karaoke, you haven't got a clue that those were words. I was singing Take That, Back for Good. Wash your back, wash your back, wash your back. Want your back? What's this? Want your back? I've been singing Wash Your Back 15 years. So then when you go on a karaoke and you see lyrics, that's what they're supposed to be singing. You know that song, We Are Family? For years I thought they were singing, Just Let Me Staple the Vicar. Right? Who's right and who's wrong here? Listen.
All of the people around us, they say, can they be that close? Just let me state for the record.
I'm a bit worried about the stapling the vicar bit, but actually it happens when it comes to Christmas songs as well. Hopefully we're going to have our PowerPoint up. There was a teacher was writing that she was doing a nativity, and of course the children were going to sing Silent Night, Holy Night, and everything went really well till they got to the line, round yon virgin, mother and child, and one little boy belted out at the top of his lungs, round John Virgin. And I've got a personal confession to make. In Scotland, we call a child a wain. And I can remember in Sunday school that I sung, along with probably every other child there, when we sang Away in a Manger. Oh, it would help if I turned this on, wouldn't it? Sorry, Karen. I was singing Away in a Manger. You'll all be listening now when I'm singing these Christmas carols. But I want us to think about that well-known Christmas song, Away in a Manger, because I want us to think about a line that's not mispronounced, but it's a line that could be really seriously misunderstood. Here's the line. I'm positive that you know it. The cattle are lowing, the baby awakes, but the little Lord Jesus, no crying he makes. And I think that the words that cause the potential confusion are no crying he makes. We live in Givran, and about half a kilometre along the road is a barn, and I quite often in our bedroom hear cattle lowing. Our daughter Mary, when she was a baby, in her bedroom, if you stepped on a creaky floorboard, she woke up. So I'm pretty certain that any normal child who had a cow bellowing in their ear would have woken up and would have cried. And so some people think that this idea in that line of the little Lord Jesus, no crying he makes, it causes a possible misunderstanding that Jesus isn't a normal human being. He doesn't react like the rest of us. And in fact, that was a real danger in the very earliest centuries of the church. There were a group of people who believed that Jesus wasn't really human. He just appeared to be human. They were called the Docetists, if you're interested. But tonight, we've heard that that was wrong. You probably picked up in one of our readings in John's Gospel where it said the Word became flesh, the Word became human. That's what the word flesh means. It means completely human. And John is emphasizing there that Jesus became 100% human in the same way that you and I are. Now, I want to tell you a story about why that matters. I met a descendant of the couple that I'm going to talk about when I studied in Kentucky in America, and he told us a story. In 1926, George Harley was a Methodist missionary doctor. He was well trained in the United States and in the UK. And he decided that God was calling him and his wife, Winifred, to move to Liberia in Africa. And so when they got there, rather than staying in the relative comfort of the main city where there was a hospital and he would have been the head of the hospital, George and Winifred went 150 miles out into the bush where there was no medical facilities at all and opened a small clinic, built a house and a little chapel. And very soon he was treating 10,000 patients a year. And not long after they arrived, Winifred gave birth to their first son, whom they called Bobby. But despite the fact that people came to him for treatment, they kept their distance outside the clinic. And no one made friends, and no one came to visit, and certainly no one came to the little chapel. And for 5 happy years, little Bobby grew up there in the bush until one day he collapsed. George, despite all his medical training, couldn't save his own son. Because he had to do everything for himself, George went and built a little coffin for his son and put it on his shoulders and walked out to a clearing where he would bury his son. And as he walked by the village, one of the village elders who was sitting there saw him and asked him what he was doing. George said that he was going to bury his son. And the elder said, well, I'll help you. And they took one end of the coffin and they went, and together they dug the grave. When George had filled in the grave, not unnaturally, he was absolutely overcome with grief. And he fell to his knees and wept and wept. The village elder squatted beside him and watched him for a few moments and then ran to the village. And in the village, Winifred heard this village elder shouting to everyone who would listen, "The white man, he cries like one of us. The white man, he cries like one of us." And from that moment on, things changed between George and Winifred and the people in the village, because suddenly they realized that this strange couple were actually just like them. Human in the same way, experiencing the same emotions that they did. There's a verse in the New Testament. In fact, it's the shortest verse in the whole of the New Testament that reminds us that God is human just like one of us. And what I want you to do is I want you to have that story of George and Winifred at the back of your mind as I read this verse to you. And it simply says, Jesus wept. And to give you a little bit of background, what happened was one of Jesus' closest friends, whom we are told that Jesus loved, Lazarus, had died. And when he arrived at the graveside, we're told that Jesus experienced that same gut-wrenching grief that George did. And just like George, he broke down and wept. Just like one of us. Just like one of us. Emmanuel is one of those words we hear a lot about in Christmas. We've sung it tonight. We've heard it read. But you see, Emmanuel is more than just a name for Jesus. In a sense, Emmanuel is a one-word summary of the implications and the results and the purpose of Christmas. It's what this whole thing is all about. For you see, Emmanuel means God with us. It means that at Christmas we remember that God enters our world, becomes part of the human race while remaining God. And we tend to think that that means, Emmanuel means that we can know God, that we can understand God. And that's absolutely bang on. This is what it says in John 1:18. We heard this tonight. No one has ever seen God, but the one and only Son, who is God himself and is near to the Father's heart, he has revealed God to us. Do you know, if you're confused about what God is like, if you're unsure if God even exists, The Bible simply points to Jesus and says that is what God is truly like. And as Christians, we believe not simply that Christ is God, but that God is Christ-like. And in him there is no unChrist-likeness at all. But you see, it means more than that. Emmanuel also means that God is with us, that God became human, which means not simply that we can understand God, but that God understands us and knows our experience. God with us is one of the mind-blowing truths of Christmas. It means that God is with us in the tough times of life. And it's a truth about God that can dispel our fears and bring comfort and peace to our grieving hearts. With the arrival of God's Son to earth on that first Christmas, we celebrate the great, eternal, awesome God is now with us in our human experience. Emmanuel means that God knows what it's like to be human. And boy, at the moment, we live in a chaotic world that seems sometimes to be out of control. The world of COVID-19 that's resulted in so much division between those who are vaccinated and unvaccinated. And has caused isolation and social distancing and lockdowns and real personal anxiety and distress and mental health problems and marriage breakdowns. They're all skyrocketing. But I believe that if tonight we can understand this great truth of Emmanuel, God with you, then it can give you stability and security and hope and peace and confidence, whatever lies ahead in 2022. Whatever you are facing right now, the message of Christmas is Emmanuel. God is with you. Whatever you're going through right now, for God is always with his people. Loved ones may die, partners might reject you, friends might desert you, disasters may come to you, your company may let you go, and the virus might even infect you, but God is with you and will never leave you. The writer of one of the books in the New Testament, the book of Hebrews, loves to draw out the implications of God being with us, God being really human. And this is what he, or perhaps she, says. Says he understands our humanity. For as a man, our magnificent King Priest was tested in every way just as we are and conquered sin. And so now we can draw near freely and boldly to where grace is enthroned to receive mercy and discover the grace we urgently need to strengthen us in our time of need. I'm going to tell you what that means in a nutshell. What the writer of Hebrews is telling you tonight, because God is with us, God is human, and God is Emmanuel. He is simply saying, try praying. Try praying. He's saying, because God understands our humanity, has gone through the same human experiencing, God understands what you're going through, which means he cares and he helps. And the promise that we get from God isn't that we'll avoid tough times and difficult situations, but whatever tough times and difficult situations we come to, he will be with us in them. He is a God who helps and understands. And I don't know about you, but it makes a big difference to me if I'm talking to someone about something and they've gone through the same thing. Suddenly I understand that they understand, and what a difference that makes. And that's what this writer of the New Testament is telling us, that we don't pray to a God who's away out there, aloof and insulated from our suffering, but a God who's with us, who entered the human race to experience what we've experienced. So tonight, I can tell you, try praying. Are you experiencing grief because you lost someone you loved? Try praying to the God who wept at his friend's grave. Are you feeling hurt and betrayed by someone you thought loved you? Then try praying to the God who felt Judas's kiss. Are you feeling badly treated by your family? Then try praying to the God whose family at one point said he was mad. Are you feeling you've been treated unjustly? Then try praying to the God who was condemned by Pontius Pilate. Are you feeling stressed and overwhelmed? Then try praying to the God who sweat blood in the Garden of Gethsemane. Are you feeling rejected? Then try praying to the God who was rejected by most of his contemporaries. You know, we believe that this is so important, that in the new year as a church, we want to help as many of us as we can to try praying. Because sometimes people get mixed up and intimidated by what praying's all about. And so what we're going to do in January is, there's a very simple little book called Try Praying. It's just a little guide to help you in a week to try praying about what's going on in your life. And starting on the 9th of January, the second Sunday, for about a month, we're going to look at praying for different areas of our life. And we'd love to give you one of these books. And if you're thinking, I'm in a tough time at the moment, I'd encourage you to try praying. And if it would help you to join us here on Sundays to do that, we would be delighted to have you. But I'm also aware that maybe for some of us, it's even more urgent than that. And you can't wait till the 9th of January. And if you send me an email to james@westlake.com, I can send you an electronic copy of this little book tomorrow if you send me an email tonight. So the message that I want us all to take away from tonight is that God is Emmanuel. God with us in whatever we are facing right now. I'm going to hand over to the worship group.